Okay, first of all, let's open the Blender. So we can see a couple options here. So first we have to create a new file and a general new file. Click on it. So we can see now we are in the scene. And the first step will be importing the OBJ file that we exported from the reality capture. To do that, we go to File, Import, and select OBJ. So come here, we can see here are two options. So the first is OBJ, so we click on this, and we click on Import. And now we can see actually the file size is 14.1 megabytes, which is very big. And we are going to like make it smaller to around like 2.5 megabytes. Okay. Now this model has been imported. So now we can see to make it smaller, to see a broader view, we and then select, and then we click on this, and we want it to put in the origin of the scene, so which is 0, 0, 0. So we click on this, and we can use move, so it's shift space and G. So we click on this, move it. To make it more precise, we have to change the view. So to change the view, we can click on view and area, toggle quad view. So now we're seeing this burger from 4 different perspectives. So the first, this is the like the perspective view, so we can switch it. And this one's from the X, and this one's from Y, and this from Z. So this is better for us to make it more precise. So we click on it, and then we move it. And also we want to rotate this, so we can rotate it. There are like shortcuts, so you click on Shift Space, and then you can select like which tool that you want to use. So we can click on move, and then we can move it. So from this X perspective, we can see it's a little bit tilt, so we still want to rotate it, and then we can R, and we can rotate it a little bit. And to move it, transform, move it up, and rotate it a little bit more, put it down. Okay, so here also move it a little bit here. So now we can see from the top perspective, it's in the center of the origin, and here we can see it, it's right above the ground, which is good. Okay, so now we can go back, view, area, and come back to this and save. Come here, and then we can name it Valcampo Blender file, and then we save this. So the save shortcut of save is Control S, so which is what we commonly use. And also you can go to here, file, and save this. Okay, so now we can tap the tap key, and we can see actually this model has so many vertex and faces, and also they are very chaotic, which is really not good. So what we want to do is we want to make it look all quads, and then look at more beautiful and clear, and it will be easier for us to do the UV mapping. So to do that, the first thing we have to do is to retopologize it. So to do that, we go back to the object mode. So the previous mode that we are in is edit mode. So you can also switch it by go to edit mode, and also you can switch back to object mode. So we come back here, and also we can see the texture. So here are 4 small keys or icons that we can click on. So if you click on the viewport shading, we should be able to see the model. But now we are not going to use this texture color map because this one is for this chaos UVs, so we don't want it, and we're gonna delete it. So, but this is just for showing you like, oh, we actually have this color map, and it's actually not something that we want. So we come back here, we don't want to enable the color map. So here we go back to the object mode, and now we're going to do the retopology. To do that, we go here, this is called Quad Remesher. This is an add-on that I downloaded online, and this add-on is developed by the Remesher. It's the same studio or company who developed the Remesher for the ZBrush. The Remesher functionalities in ZBrush is very powerful. So I have some experience with ZBrush, but I don't think you need to learn the ZBrush. So I just need this remeasure tool, and I download this add-on to Blender. So it's very powerful and very useful in this case. All right, so after we enter the quad remeasure, we can change the quad count. So for this case, probably I will do 10,000. There's not much things we need to change, and we can. This is just for the demo purpose. You can test like if 10,000 is appropriate, or you can try maybe like 5,000, 1,000, or 20,000 to see which one works the best. But for now, I'm only gonna use the 10,000 count. So after this, we just click on the remesh, and you can see here it's being processed and it's 55%. It shouldn't take a very long time, and so now we just wait. Okay, so it's succeed. So we can see now we can not see much difference, but if we go to the edit mode by pressing tab, we can see it's much better and clearer than before, right? So now what we want to do is we want to fill the holes. So we can see here are two holes, one big one and one small one. So to do that, we go to the edit mode, and we can see this hole here. And to do that, let me just minimize it first. To do that, we have to select faces. So here are three small icons that we can click on. This is vertex select. This is edges select, which is this line. And we have face select. So to select these faces, I find it the easiest way to do that is to click on this, and we should select the select circle. So you can just like painting on here. Okay. You don't need to be too careful for the first time. Just like this, right? And also we randomly select something over here. We can deal with it later. And then we go down here, and then we select just, whatever you want. But be careful, always remember to, so I forgot to press the shift key to add all these highlights. So I used Control Z to reverse. So it's usually like all the Photoshop or something like that, so it's all the same. So what we want to be careful is that we also want to select this part. So we click shift, and then we can select all these faces, and we have to make sure we select all of them. Okay, so now we don't want, the next step will be getting rid of the part that we don't want. So how to do that? We click on Control, and then we can just paint it out. And also, like I said, here are something that we don't want. We don't want to delete so many faces. So we just Control left mouse. We just want to delete as much as few as possible. So we have to delete this. So no. Okay, delete this. Okay, now so if we okay, so you want to add this part. Okay, great. So now all the faces has been selected, and we press the X key to delete all the faces. Okay, now we can see all the faces has been deleted. So now we want to fill this hole. What we can do is we change to select line, select this edges. I want to change a tool called select box. So I click on this, and you can see this has been highlighted. And if I press Alt key and then select this, it will help me to select a loop. But this one doesn't, but the software doesn't recognize it as a loop, so we have to edit ourselves. And we click Alt and select this. Oh, okay. So we go back. If I want to add a loop, so I should Shift Alt, so I can add a loop. Doesn't matter if I made a mistake. And add a loop. Edit. Let's see. Okay, I think now we're done, right? So we can see now all this loop has been connected. So what we can do is we can press F3 and we search fill. So there are a few options. So we want this. Okay, so this one is being filled, but this is very ugly. It's not as this one. It's not clean. But we will redo the remesh again. Okay, so we basically do the same thing to the bottom. So we select this and Shift Alt, select, 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 select. Okay, so Alt F is being filled. And it's the same with the small holes here. So first go to here and face here. Control, delete the face that we don't need to delete. And come down here and select face. And I think we have this one. X faces. And we select the loop. Here, switch to box. Okay. Alt F. Come down here. Select it. Alt F. Oh, problem. Yep. Alt F. Okay. So save again. So now we can see it. It's being the hole has been filled. So now we want to redo it. So we go here again. Same thing. Click on this and wait. Okay. Now we can see. Whoa! Why it's become purple? Because it has no texture. But we don't need to worry about this. Okay, now so after retopology, what we are going to do is we are going to do the UV unwrap for the low poly model. So now you can see after the retopology, the low poly model has no texture. So what we're going to do is to do, so now we're going to the UV editing. And now we can see this is the UV map of high poly model. And we can see it's kind of very like chaotic. If we come here and put it down, we can see actually this is the color map for the high poly model. And if we turn on this UV sync selection, actually we put a UV map on top of the color map. And you can see the color map and the UV map are actually matched with each other. So think about this, the UV map is kind of like the frame, and the color map is kind of like the paint or the color that put on top of the UV map. So when we in the 2D in 2 dimension, and so when we wrap it like into 3D, we can see the color. Okay, so after reviewing the high poly model, what we are going to do is we are going to create the same thing for the low poly model. We go back to the object mode by using the tab key, and we disable it. And we can see here is 1 by 1, like it's a square image editor. So we click on this and tap, and we can see we have no UV map for now. But if we select this and we click on the smart UV projection, and we can see here is an angle limit. If we turn it up to the top, which is 89 in this case, we click on OK, and we can see we have this many UV maps. So it cut into so many UV islands. We call it UV island. And if you select them, oh, I made a big mistake just now because I didn't turn on the X-ray selection mode. So if I turn on the X-ray selection mode, I actually select everything, and then I can the smart UV map, and then OK. So now we can see these UV islands. And if we look at closer, we can see the UV map. The UV map has different color indicators. How to turn it on? You can go to the tool, go to the view, display, overlays, and turn on the stretching. So it's basically showing you how each cube, each square has been stretched or squeezed. So the blue part means it's good, and green means it's been stretched. And we probably can find something in red. So if we use the pinch and then squeeze it, we can see it's sometimes we squeeze it too much, we can see it's become red. So we don't want either green or red because it's not perfect. Only the blue is the perfect color that we want. But in reality is we cannot make every UV phase to be perfect. So what we are trying to do is that we're trying to minimize the number of the UV map. So probably we have to limit it to like 5 or 6 UV maps. So for this burger, we can cut it either like the top bound to be a part, and bottom bound to be a separate part. And for this patty part and the veggie part, we can give it some cut to make it better. So to do that, first let's disable the X-ray mode. And we can see actually this burger has been cut because I have cut it. So we want to create a new UV, manually create a new UV for it. So how can we cut this UV? First of all, we can select here. So this is a face selection, it's not what we want. We come here and select the edges selection. And we can select edges. And you can see when I select these edges, meanwhile, this edges has been highlighted as well because these two views are actually synchronized with each other. If you click on this is called the UV sync selection. It's been synced. So we go here and then click, and we can add selection by pressing on the Shift key and left mouse to select. And we can Control E to mark seam to make a cut. And we can Control Z to reverse. And then we can, if you want to do it faster, you can click on this, and then Control to make a loop, to make a longer connection. So, and also if you want to, so I'm going to demo it. So we select it, select this. I press on the Control key and select to link them all together. And you press the Control E to mark seam, and also you can do here edge, mark seam here, and Control E, and mark seam. So you can make loops. So now we can see actually I have previously get some loop, so I'm gonna reverse it. I don't want it. So we go back. How can we manually unwrap it? You can come here, Alt Z, select them all, and then I go to UV and UV unwrap. So now you can see we have created a new UV map. And also we can make some editing for this UV, all these UV islands. For example, we can turn on the face selection, and then we can randomly select some faces, and then we use Control L to select the whole UV island, and we can move it top or down. So Shift space, and then use G to grab it, and we can move it. We can maybe move it a little bit to the right. And that's pretty much it. So we can save this. And what we're going to do next is that we're going to project these textures to the new UV map, so we can have the same color map as the high poly model. After the UV mapping, what we are going to do is that we are going to bake color map, normal map, and ambient occlusion map for the low poly model. So basically what we are going to do is that we are going to transfer the map, color map from the high poly model to the low poly model. Okay, to do that, we are going to create a cage for the low poly model. So to do that, we're going to move these two models to the exactly same position. So now we can see the high poly model is in the 000 and the rotation 000, and scale is all 1. And now we're going to move it. Okay, so now we can see these two models is completely overlapped with each other. And how can we bake a perfect map? So to do that, we're going to create a cage. So we want to duplicate the low poly model first, and so I use the Control C and Control V to copy and paste a low poly model, and then I name it low poly model cage. And we are going to create a modifier for this cage. So add a displacement modifier. So now we can see if we disable the low poly model, we can see this cage cover the high poly model. We can change it smaller and then we can inflame it to cover the high poly model. So we want to just cover the high poly model, just no parts of the high poly model is shown. So I think the 0.5 is a good number for it. And we just keep it. And remember, we should be in the object mode in order to bake the textures. So now I want to hide the cage and enable the low poly model. And we are going to create 3 texture maps for the low poly model. So we are going to go to the shading mode, and we're going to create 3 texture maps. So to do that, I'm in this, and then Shift A, search, image, texture, and create a new one. We call it low poly color map, and we want it to be 2048, 2048, and 2048. And I disabled the alpha channel because we don't need it. And we click on OK. So now we have a color map. Same thing. Shift A. We can go to the texture and image texture. So it's basically the same. Add new. Call it low poly normal map. And OK. And the other way to do that is add texture. So after creating the 3 textures, we click on this, and then now we select color map, and to the we go here and to the bake type. Remember to change it to diffuse map. Diffuse map is actually the same thing with the color map, and we want to disable the direct and indirect, and use this as a reference. And we select first select the high poly and the low poly, and we click on bake. So now we can see the texture is being baked, and we just wait. Okay, now we can see the color map has been baked. So we go to the normal map. Now we're going to bake the normal map. We click on this and change it to normal, and we click on bake. Okay, now we have the normal map, and then we go to the AO map, ambient occlusion map, and change it to the ambient occlusion. Select this and then bake. So now we can see the ambient occlusion map has been baked, and what we want to do is we want to save all the 3 maps. To save all images. So we're going to save it to the file that we have, or we can use like save as. You can see now we have this folder, and save it here. Save as an image. Also we can go color map, image, save as. Do the same, save as image, and select the normal map, image, save as, and save as image. Alright, so let's hide the high poly model and the cage. So what we can see now, we go back to the object mode. So now we can see there's no textures on the low poly model still, because we haven't assigned it to this low poly model. So we go here and color, go to the base color. So now we can see we have the color map, and we can review it a little bit. So here is something that we have to fix it later. And but overall speaking, it's not bad at all. So normal map, assign it. Okay, so you can see now it looks awesome, but there are still things that we can further optimize it later. For example, the bottom part and some textures over here. We can use the texture paint to do that later, and we are going to save the ambient occlusion map and assign it later. Okay, now I'm going to talk about like how we are going to assign the ambient occlusion map to these models. First of all, let's add a ambient occlusion map node for here, and then we connect the color to the color in ambient occlusion, and then we add a mix RGB node, and here we assign the ambient occlusion color to the color 2 and assign the color map to the color 1. And things we need to notice that is that we change the mix to overlaid and assign the color to the shader. So now we can see we have already assigned the color map to the model. But how can we see the difference? If we use Control and right mouse, cut the noodle, cut this line, we can see a very subtle difference. See, this has become brighter, right? See, it's dark. It's brighter. It's dark. It's bright. Because the ambient occlusion map help the computer, help the render machine to understand the light. This is pretty much it for the texture baking. So now we can go to the shading viewport, and we want to make sure that all the color maps, roughness map, metallic map, ambient occlusion map have been saved. To do that, we go here and click on each texture map and go to the image, save as, to save it to the folder that you want. And now we can see we have 5 texture maps here. And what we want to do right now is we want to optimize the color map. There are a couple ways to optimize it. We can either use the texture painting in Blender, or we can use the Substance Painter, which is another software. Substance Painter is very user-friendly, and I highly recommend you to learn it. It is a professional application for optimizing the textures, so it is highly recommended. But I'm not going to talk too much about the Substance Painter because it's a little bit complicated, and if you don't use it very often, it's not necessary to learn it. Okay, now we're in the Photoshop. So the easiest way to optimize this texture map is we just cut part of this texture and then copy it on top of the bottom bomb. First we unlock it, and I usually use this tool called the patch tool, and we wanted to make it to the destination, so we can just draw a circle here and then left mouse click on it and then put it here. Boom, it's done. So now you can see the texture of this has been copied to here. So we can make some further adjustment to it. So maybe like copy this and then we cover it. So for this is very easy actually. You can just copy it to cover it. Make sure that the color are similar to each other. And also for the other part, for example, like here, we can zoom in a little bit, and then we can use the stamp tool. So we can press down the Alt key and select and then paint on top of the texture. Here. Okay, so I'm not going to demo it too much. So basically 2 tools, the patch tool and also the clone stamp tool. These two are the most useful tool that we can optimize the texture. And after optimizing it, we can file, export it as JPEG. So now you can see the file size is 1.1 megabytes, which is okay, but maybe you can make a little bit more adjustment, or to lower the quality. So you can make adjustment according to how big do you want the file size to be. And after saving the file, we can go back to the Blender and zoom in here, and we can import. So we open the image, and we can find the color map that has been added. So if that's the one that I did with, already. So I can open it. So open it, and then if I go to the layout mode, so you can see the bottom part has been patched, and you can see a little bit here it's being patched. So after we optimize the texture, what we need to do is we need to export the file, export the model. So we click on it, and then we go to File, Export, GLB, and we can see here has the format and copyright, something you can fill out your name or so. And for geometry, we want to save the UVs, the normals, and the materials. Materials is the most important because we want it to have color. We want to have the all the texture maps that we add on the model. And we can include animation, but since we don't have any animation for these models, so we are not gonna check it. But if you add animation to this model, you can definitely just remember to check the animation. And after that, maybe we can name it GLB or something like that, and then export it. So the GLB file is most commonly used on websites, online, but for the Apple, it has a unique model format called USDZ file, which cannot be exported on Windows. So you have to use a Mac to export it, and I will introduce it later. Okay, now so I'm going to show you how to create a USDZ file for the iOS system. So first of all, we want to export it, the low poly model, as OBJ file. So we click on it, and then we go to export OBJ, and we can name it OBJ at low poly, and it's saved to somewhere that you want. But just remember that click on the selection only, because we don't want to export the high poly and the cage, and we don't want the material, we don't want animation, and we want to we don't want the normal and include UV, and we don't want the material, and export it, and then we can export it. Okay, now so we are in a Mac system. So now what we are going to do is that we are going to convert the OBJ file and all these color textures to the USDZ file. So in order to do that, we're going to use the reality converter, which is here. So actually this one's very easy to use. You just drag the OBJ file to it. And now we can see the OBJ file. And then we click on the material. So now we can see we can fill in this slots. So we go to the color map. And we will be able to see the difference. Metallic map, normal map, and roughness map. also the ambient occlusion map. So now we can see, now we have a USDZ file here, and you can write down your name there, and we can change the lighting environment to see the difference. And after that, we can export it and go to the file, export, and select a place that you want it to be saved. So we can come here and then name it Belcampo, and save it. Okay, and that's it. Now we are all done. We have create a USDZ file and JLB file from the beginning to the end.